Whereas they send 17 executive committee members and their families, Sri Lanka cricket's expense to Australia. Compared to that, recently Ramesh Raja had come here from Pakistan. On behalf of Pakistan cricket, only one of them had gone to Australia. Whereas 17 of our executive committee members have taken the flight to Australia, courtesy Sri Lanka cricket funds. Now, those funds could have been used to uplift sports in. And finally, I would like to just add about the condition in Ampara. Particularly, now there are about almost 150 clubs, right? But only 4 or 5 are being permitted, whereas 150 odd clubs are playing hardball cricket there. But the Ampara representative, he is not taking care. Honourable Presiding Member, I am pleased to follow my colleague, President's Counsel Vijaydas Rajapaksa, the Minister of Justice, who made some important observations on the current state of affairs and the way in which we can bring in some remedial measures. And also I must thank my colleague Kumara Velgama for having permitted me to speak ahead of him, though his turn is next. My thanks are due to him for that accommodation. Having said that, initially, I want to pay tribute to 2 important cricketing personalities who passed away recently from amongst us. One is the late Mr. ACM Lafir. Many in this country may not know about his records in the cricketing field. He is somebody who has perhaps had almost a Don Bradman-like average in batting. And such was the caliber of ACM Lafir, and he passed away a few months ago. And so am I also wanting to pay my tribute to late Daya Sahabandhu, who was one of our famed left-arm leg spinners who played the domestic circuit until he was in his mid-40s or even perhaps in his late 40s. Both of these people, when they died, there was not much of news in the sports pages, and at least even the Sri Lanka cricket authorities should have at least had the courtesy to have released a statement. And these are the things that you can do the least for those people who contributed to cricket in this country. Having said that, quite apart from that, I'm not going to deal with this whole issue of perceived corruption and other issues. I think initially I would like to ask from the Minister to divert from this subject to refer to the plight of hockey in this country. Hockey is being played not in any AstroTurf. We only have one AstroTurf available in the racecourse, just close to your sports ministry. That has been severely damaged. There was an AstroTurf in the Nandamitra Ekanayaka ground in Matale. That is totally destroyed. So I'm asking you, Mr. Minister, you see, we cannot go to international competition with the schools playing in the normal grass grounds, the sport like hockey anymore. Because AstroTurf is where all the international competitions are held. Therefore, we need to have a proper AstroTurf laid out in racecourse, as well as to create a further ground for the central province people. Either in Matale or Kandy, we need to have a AstroTurf ground. So we are making that request. Having made that request, I would also like to now initially say something about this obsession in holding test matches only in Galle. Now, by doing this, we are doing a big disservice to our cricket. Of course, it's a spin-friendly ground, everybody knows. After the second day, it takes spin. And then, though they thought it was favorable to us, what happens in the Pakistan series? We lost it roundly. Right? So, this obsession is also connected to the corruption and difficulties that the cricket board is facing. They always want to win matches. Right? It's not simply winning matches. That we must have a ground where all our skills will have to be tested properly. So we cannot always choose spin-friendly turfs like Gaul Stadium for our test matches. This practice has to be abandoned. The other is about the LPL. Now we had the LPL, and now what has happened ultimately? Wanindu Hasaranga is injured. And among our fast bowlers, Dusmantha Shamira is injured. Isru Udana is injured. Then Nuwan Pradeep is also injured. Right? We are risking now because we have played back-to-back games. Every other day they had to play the LPL matches. So finally, 4 of our frontline bowlers, particularly at least 3 of them, right? 2 speedsters and Wanindu Hasaranga, our strike bowler, who was the captain of the winning team, couldn't play the final match. So he himself is complaining this is because back-to-back matches have been played. And he is also complaining about have to play in Colombo. The Premadasa Stadium is not suited for a T20 game. And it has a 50-meter boundary on one side. And everybody seems to be playing to that advantage. So, but these are matters that should have been looked into. Anyway, these are small technical matters that I raised. Now, let me come to the issue concerning the cricket board's restructuring. I am not going to talk about, there's no point talking about corruption and abuse of power and various other issues, because umpteen number of times many have raised these issues here. The lack of due controls and oversight as well as regulatory stringency, which has led to a systemic failure, inadequacies, practices of Sri Lanka cricket's constitutional structure that has denuded the Sri Lanka cricket of its ability to vibrantly promote and regulate the game of cricket in Sri Lanka is what is the situation today. Singularly ill-managed and utterly vulnerable and susceptible to financial and other forms of mismanagement, manipulation, abuse, corruption, nepotism and cronyism, and suboptimal management that is most grievously and irreparably damaging the development, upliftment and indeed the very standards of cricket in Sri Lanka. And this is the issue. Therefore, Mr. Minister, forget about your tenure and what will happen to you, but take a bold decision. After this debate, I think some decision has to be made which will effectively enable a group of office bearers to be appointed. Now, what has happened? They are appointing a group of office bearers repeatedly, notwithstanding the fact that many of them are not former cricketers who are attracted to the benefits in holding such positions. And they are also conflicted by their loyalties to the clubs who vote them in. Now, I was told CCC and SSC had been given large amounts of money, 100 million, 150 million, to develop their pavilions and other facilities. Those are rich clubs, right? I have nothing against CCC and SSC. They are fine clubs. They are in our Premier Division clubs. They are doing very well. But such a large amount of money for such rich clubs? What about the other clubs which are lacking facilities? So this entire club structure has to be changed. Now, the current electoral system that has resulted in about 147 voting members, that has to be revamped. So which has resulted in almost all cricketing clubs in Sri Lanka being permitted to vote, notwithstanding the fact that they may not be playing cricket of any particular recognized standard or having the required infrastructure as grounds and clubhouses. By way of widespread buying of votes from these substandard cricketing clubs who most unfortunately do not have the best interests of Sri Lanka cricket in mind when casting their votes is the biggest problem that you are facing. So, now, such an extensive voting body is not present in any other ICC full member nation. Mr. Minister, I have short time after I finish from his time.
Yeah, I have to participate for national sports games.
Go ahead,
if you kindly please excuse me, I will watch from you.
No problem,
online.
But I want you to be bold enough to take some decision soon about the impending affairs of the Sri Lanka cricket today in the country.
You advise,
Thank you. Mr. Presiding Member, such an extensive voting body is not present in any other ICC full member nation. Now, for example, Pakistan Cricket Board, the England and Wales Cricket Board, and the Board of Control for Cricket in India representing much larger populations than Sri Lanka, have a mere 17, 18 and 38 members respectively, whereas we have 147. And for a mere population of almost 22 million in our country, the Sri Lanka first class tournament comprises as many as 24 teams. Now comparatively, Australia, with a population of around almost the same number as in Sri Lanka, has only 6 first class teams, whereas we have 24, 4 times the number than Australia. England, with a population of around 56 million, has only 18 first-class teams. So it is public knowledge that teams are promoted into first-class status not on strictly objective standards or their cricketing merit or prowess, but as a vote-buying exercise for Sri Lanka cricket elections. That's what is happening. So this whole structure has to be changed. Now, this question of honorary office bearers, honorary subcommittees are relic of the past that serve no useful purpose. So these office bearers duplicate the work of the professional management of the chief executive officer, financial officer, chief operating officer. So those are professional staff. Let them manage the affairs, not for these honorary office bearers to be heading these affairs. That is what is important. Now let me come to the most important part. Now in 2012, Mr. Harun Logat was appointed. He was a former ICC chief executive to review the Sri Lanka cricket and its management structure. He gave some recommendations. Then our late Justice Prasanna Jayawardena, one of our finest legal luminaries who adorned the Supreme Court bench later, before joining the bench, he also submitted a report which said to incorporate Sri Lanka cricket by an act of parliament as a body corporate. Right? For the Act of Parliament to incorporate a new constitution, that is to be drafted by a specially appointed committee and thereafter to be submitted to the legal draftsman department for finalization. Now the minister has the power to do that under the sports law. Now I can go on giving details. Now let me just quote from the Supreme Court of India in Board of Control for Cricket in India versus Cricket Association of Bihar. What the Supreme Court said: having considered the compromised situation of the Board of Control for Cricket in India, BCCI, made a judicial intervention in a very proactive manner in the larger interest of cricket and the public and consequently the nation, notwithstanding the fact that the BCCI was a private body and therefore alleged not to be amenable to writ jurisdiction. In its judgment, the Supreme Court of India held the BCCI is a very important institution that discharges important public functions. Demands of institutional integrity are therefore heavy and need to be met suitably in the larger public interest, and therefore intervention is necessary. And they have, thereafter, that lot of reforms have now been introduced and being implemented in India. Therefore, you have to take some courage from what has happened in India, our neighboring country, and start using your powers under the sports law so that you can take action and bring an enactment through Parliament and make them answerable to Parliament. These people are not talking about this being a private institution and is engaging in litigation with you, all of which is and be wasting public money. Right? Whereas they send 17 executive committee members and their families at Sri Lanka cricket's expense to Australia. Compared to that, recently Ramesh Raja had come here from Pakistan. You know, on behalf of Pakistan cricket, only one of them had gone to Australia. Whereas 17 of our executive committee members have taken the flight to Australia, courtesy Sri Lanka cricket funds. Now, those funds could have been used to uplift sports in. And finally, I would like to just add about the condition in umpire. Particularly, now there are about almost 150 clubs, right? But only 4 or 5 are being permitted, whereas 100 playing hardball cricket there. Our representative, he is not taking care. I'm tabling all these names of the clubs, and also I would like to refer to my own district, Kandy. Now there is a big, they had sent us a detailed record of how many schools they have given this cricket equipment. There are about 4 Muslim schools there, but the fact is that these equipment have been given years ago, right? Are they giving it every year? And for, hardball cricket, the equipment will not be used beyond a year or two. Right? So, with all the money that is being wasted for unnecessary projects could have been channeled to develop cricket in this country, and that is not happening. And if you are to check the abuse of power in these institutions, there is no other way but to at least either you appoint an interim committee, right? You don't have to fear because South Africa nothing happened, right? Or otherwise, bring in an act of parliament and finally appoint a board of directors so that they can get a new constitution drafted. Thank you.